This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Huss and Reem with you. Lots to get to as the Bombers are back on the practice field getting ready for the Hamilton Tiger Cats on Friday night ahead of the Labor Day Classic and the Banjo Bowl against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. With the Bombers back at practice, Darrin Bauming of Bonfire Sports down at the stadium. We're going to catch up with DB coming up and then turn it over to Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun. And we'll certainly talk Bombers and get Scott's thoughts on the sweep of the BC Lions and the Bombers' much rosier predicament than they were at 2-6 going into that home and home against BC. We'll also talk a little bit of the offseason hockey news from the week with Scott. And then later on today, we'll get to this in a minute when Michael Remis brings out, but fantasy football season's here. NFL preseason is winding down, and we're going to be talking some more NFL in the second hour of the shows over the course of the next little bit. And we figured with all the fantasy drafts coming up, we owe the respect to the defending champion of the Media League, who took me out in the final, Josh Frey-Sam, big Packer guy, to come on and talk a little NFL. We'll get his favorite players for fantasy this year. We'll also talk a little NFC North. I'm sure he is quite high on the Packers. I am very high on the Packers, and I think there's some interesting props involving the Packers as well that we can get to. So we'll talk a little NFL later on in the program, and of course we'll get to the Coolbet Lines. Just finished up a very fun lock shop with Patty and Dusty with our picks for the BMW Championship. And, of course, a huge topic on the Lock Shop, and we'll be right when we bring in Michael Remis, was last night's Lock Shop Poker Series opener with 60 of our closest friends from the Lock Shop, Winnipeg Sports Talk, Edmonton Sports Talk. Absolute blast last night. Thanks to everyone that played with us, and there will be some congratulations going out in just a moment. Huge shout out to all of our sponsors that make this program happen each and every day. And of course, CFL 110. Jeff Hamilton is like a caged lion right now, ready to get in front of a mic to talk about everything coming out of the weekend in the Canadian Football League heading into the next one. We have a packed CFL 110 coming up right after Winnipeg Sports Talk today. So if you're with us live, hang around. We'll do the self-raid and go right into it. And if you're listening on the podcast, check the feed. And if you can, pop in CFL 110 wherever you get your favorite podcasts and give that a download. We'll have fresh content on the 3-Down League coming up a little later on. CFL 110 brought to you by Garage Living Winnipeg. We'll have that right after WST today. Also have to thank Princess Auto, Coolbet Canada, for his Canadian Club, Wallace & Wallace, F Apparel, Manitoba Battery, Consolidated Supply, Rollies Transfer, Little Brown Jug, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, the Beer Can, along with Hoagie Boys, and Next Door on Sherbrooke. Of course, the Gold Eyes, who are back in action tonight, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Assiniboia Downs, and Breezy Bend. And we will get to a why not question of the day for not Autocorp, but Waverly and McGillivray. All right, let's bring in Michael Remis, who has just spent the last 45 minutes Barry Horowitzing himself in the Lock Shop chat for his second place finish last night, doing a great job of representing Winnipeg Sports Talk in what was an amazing poker tourney with many familiar faces. Remo, congratulations. You did a heck of a job representing WST last night.
Yeah, that was a super fun tournament, going in poker online with a lot of people you know. I was at a table with you. I was at a table with Cowboy, Jason Jett. I was in a table with Nielsen at one time trying to go for that bounty. Who else was in there? Spency 5 Sensi from EST, who's been in ours. I was beside him for a long time. And it was great. And I ended up finishing in second. I knocked out Matt Iwanek from EST at the final table. So I had a great time. I went pretty late. I think I got impatient after the clock went after 1 a.m. And the stacks were pretty high and blinds were kind of low. And I think I was like, I got to make something happen here. And I got knocked out. It's fine. I'm happy with my second place finish. I'll take the prize. I didn't make any of the bounties, but I had a great time, so it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, thanks to everyone that jumped on. And, I know there was a bunch of new folks that jumped on with us that maybe hadn't been betting at Coolbet, or maybe just not sports bettors, but do like the poker that jumped in. I know Randy D got in on it last night. It was great to see Randy there. And it was a lot of fun. I did not keep the bounty. No, I got whacked by, I'll give a shout out to, and it was tough because I was right around the bubble. The top 12 of the tournament got paid, and I think I finished 14th. Warden Mad 47.94 was the guy that took me out. And Dusty went out a little earlier as well. Because there was a bounty on my head, I knew that when I was going in, I had to be ready to dance. So I did play probably a little more conservatively than I have in the past. And it was great. I mean, I hung around. There's a lot of guys, you're seeing chipping away, and all of a sudden you're right there in the cusp of making the money. I was just short stacked, though. I had to play at a certain point or I was going to get blinded out, and I just didn't have enough time to hang around till the top 12. But that final table had our guy Uchaz, who's from EST, a big lock shopper, Matt Iwanek and Remis. Iwanek and Remis, you guys were both in the top 5. I think Matty went out at 5, courtesy of you, the River King. And then you made it happen all the way to the top 2. So one more step to go next time we do this. But for a first time out, and a very soft launch, amazing turnout. And from the response of just about everyone had a great time, and we'll look forward to doing something like this again.
Yeah, I hope so. It was a great platform, fun tournament. I like the bounties, maybe put a little too much pressure on us, or pressure on people to try to knock you out, but it was fun getting back in. I hadn't played a lot. I actually last played, we did my hockey team did a poker tournament. I finished second in that as well. So I need to look up how to play heads up better. You don't really look up heads up. You don't think you're going to be in the final 2, but it's certainly different than playing at a full table of players.
Yeah. So anyways, congratulations. And I should pull this up. I've got the photos. Who was the winner that we have to give congratulations to? The one person that bested you and knocked you out.
I don't remember the guy's name. I haven't been thinking about it in my mind over and over and repeat since getting eliminated. I haven't been replaying that hand at all.
No.
I actually don't know. Here, let me look at it. I did.
Let's see. I've got the thing right here. It was. Oh God, I've got a time over his thing on my picture. But anyways, let's see the final 3. Who was it? I've got it right here. Oh, Isotope 06.
Yeah,
that's right. So well done, Isotope, for being the only person that was able to knock out Remis last night at our first ever Lock Shop Poker Open.
To be fair, there was rebuys, so I maybe was playing a bit aggressive early on before the rebuy, deadline came up, and I got to give a shout out to Cowboy, who did knock me out very early on. But I knew I could rebuy, and I was planning on rebuying. So
I avenged your loss and knocked Cowboy out.
Thank you.
After that, I see Cowboy. I was horny for the Hustler bounty, but he took me out. Yeah, Isotope was the winner. So yeah, it ended up being great. You probably got a pretty nice little addition to the Coolbet account after that one as well.
Yes, very nice. I kept Googling the exchange between euros and Canadian dollars.
Basically 1.5.
Is that what it is? Okay. Well, I had a good time. Super fun. So.
Anyways, thanks again to everyone coming. Now there was one other thing that we need to talk about here from yesterday's poker tourney. So Reem was in there at M. Remis. Somebody else in the tournaments poker handle is M. Remis 69.
Yeah.
I thought I knew who it was. I had my suspicions, but I've exhausted these leads, and I don't think that my original suspects were who it was. So if anyone can help us identify who M. Remis 69 is as a poker handle, there's some impersonation going on. But the fact that it was the 69 after M. Remis told me all I needed to know about whoever it was that decided on that on their poker handle.
Yeah, and they were actually the chip leader for a while, and I was beside them at the table. They were playing ultra aggressive, and they were in first.
Maybe it is Oleg, MC Stormy. Could it be Oleg?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know who it was. I didn't think it was that funny, but I don't want to say because I don't want more of them coming out of the woodwork. So I was actually gonna. Why don't you tell Pat and Jake at Coolbet to shut that guy's account down?
Oh, Dash Main, LOL, it was me. Comment, no, it was me. All right, everyone's claiming now. The M. Remis 69 handle.
Yeah, it wasn't me. I would never put 69 after my name. Never.
All right. Well, listen, let's get down to business of the show. But again, thanks to everyone that jumped on last night and hung out with us. We'll, I think with the response to the tourney, there's a very good chance that we'll be setting up a little bit of a schedule through the winter on some non-Jet game nights and doing it again. We'll get into some of the hockey talk, coming out of this week, which was actually quite a busy week for hockey news, or at least the last couple days. Obviously, we hit that extensively yesterday. But Remo, the Bombers are back practicing for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And, the more I think about Friday, I'm just fired up to be at the stadium. I mean, I think it's going to be a beautiful night. Looks like the weekend is going to be hot and sunny, a great way to sort of get through the last regular weekend before Labor Day and unfortunately into September. This is a huge opportunity for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers to start to roll into Regina hot and feeling great. And they should right now. I mean, the way this defense is playing, they're going to have a chance to win each and every game. I don't expect, with the shortcomings and the mistakes earlier on in the season and the 0-4 and 2-6 start, that the Bombers will be taking anybody lightly. But they will need to be ready to play to continue their run against Hamilton on Friday night. This should be a good one, but an important test for the Bombers to go out and do what everyone expects them to do, and that's take care of business and get ready for a trip to Regina.
Yeah, this is going to be, I think it's going to be tougher than you think. I know they're 10-point favorites, but we'll see how it goes for the Bombers against this Ticats defense that's given up among the most points in the CFL this season, 334. We've seen the Bombers, they've been able to get in the red zone all season, but scoring touchdowns has been an issue. So, if you can have a good showing against Hamilton, which seemingly every team has this year, and, shut down them on offense, and I haven't really seen who's playing quarterback. It was Powell who got the start last game. He got injured, and Bo Levi Mitchell came in. And, Bo Levi Mitchell, he's able to put up yards in garbage time, so I'll give him that one. The defense gives up so many points. When he's on offense, I think the other...
Spoken like a true DFS player.
Well, his defense gives up so many points, but they're barely playing, and he comes in and just throws in all these, garbage time yards. I'll never forget Keandre Smith scoring the most meaningless touchdown earlier in the season and getting a flag for excessive celebration. It was the most useless touchdown I've ever seen. So I don't know if there's any thing you can take away about the team's mindset when you're celebrating, scoring a touchdown to bring it down from down 28 to down 20 in the dying seconds of a game. But it hasn't gone well for Hamilton this year. And yeah, the Bombers, they got to keep pace with this West that is so bunched up, so tight, 4-6. They do have the tiebreaker on Calgary, a game ahead of Edmonton. You have the tiebreaker on BC, who's ahead of you at 5-5, and they're in Ottawa this week. And Saskatchewan, they got a tough one on the road against Chad Kelly tomorrow night in Toronto. So this is a good opportunity for the Bombers. Derek Taylor was tweeting out their remaining schedule, how it's among the easiest in the CFL. They haven't played Hamilton yet, and they haven't played Edmonton. Although I think we'll learn a bit more. We're continuing to learn more about Edmonton, but since the ownership change, since the coaching change. But this is a good opportunity for the Bombers just to add to their lead, and we'll see if they cover. I don't think I'm going to pick them to cover. That's 10 points is a lot, and they seem to play.
It's 9.5 now. It's 9.5 now. But you are right. I mean, listen, they haven't been blowing teams out, and the offense. I mean, listen, the offense has gotten the job done against BC, but there's still another level or two for the Bomber offense to really start clicking. And listen, last week was the first game that they had Kenny Lawler back, and I think it was pretty clear from the numbers and the way that the game went that the big beneficiary of the return of Kenny Lawler, Reem, was Nick Dembski, who had his top game of the season and I believe was the top receiver in the league via PFF. The PFF guys, the Pro Football Focus, that do analytic work in the National Football League, are doing work for the Canadian Football League this year. And there were some great results for the Bombers coming out of this game. Nick Dembski, top receiver. Terrell Ford, the top corner, and he has been ranked as the number one corner throughout the year. What a story he's been. We'll talk about him a little bit more with Darrin Bauming a little later on. But the Bomber offensive line also graded as the number one line last week. And we knew that was a bit of an issue early on this season. Zach's getting more protection right now. And even though Brady Oliveira only had 10 carries, it seemed like every time he was getting the football, he was going for 7 or 8 yards right now. So there's a lot clicking. It's just a matter of a little bit more finish for this Bomber offense. And I think this is a key game for them to really start feeling it before going back to Saskatchewan, where in their previous visit this year, the offense was only able to muster 9 points in a game that was very much winnable with the defense keeping Saskatchewan under 20.
Yeah, and the Bombers, what we said their issues were before, are no longer issues. We're all wondering, is Zach, his best years behind him? Is he still MOP caliber quarterback? Well, at those times, Huss, you weren't getting protection. He was under pressure a lot and getting sacked, and you didn't have, all these veteran receivers, even, in Schoen and Lawler, and just getting, the emergence of Ontario Wilson has been very big, and just getting Kenny Lawler back, as you said, opens up so much. And Brady, I think he got off to a slow start too. He was injured during training camp and making a huge impact in running, but also you're seeing him catch the ball more too when the receivers are out. So the team really seems to be coming together. The issues that they had are not huge issues anymore. And again, big opportunity to, keep pace with everyone. And you have 2 huge games against Saskatchewan where you can take the season series if you win both and leapfrog them in the standings. I guess we'll see what happens with Saskatchewan Thursday. We'll know, but you could pass them after the 2 games. So exciting, a very exciting time here. Seems like the script has totally flipped, and the game Friday, it's 90s night. Fred Penner is going to be there. They've sold over 30,000 tickets.
Fred Penner, by the way, Fred Penner has been everywhere over the course of the last 10 days. It was the Fred Penner bobblehead game with the Fish last Friday. Fred Penner performed at the Lions game on the weekend. And then, of course, now being part of the festivities this week. Quite a summer for Fred, for former WST guest Fred Penner. We may have to talk to our pal Murat when he gets back and line up another return visit for that guy. By the way, those Fred Penner bobbleheads that the Gold Eyes gave out were amazing. Shout out to anyone that got there early and got there to add to the collection. A couple things just to wrap your conversation about the West. I mean, it was a week ago that we'd said, you know what, it's kind of like we're back, starting all over again. And this was when the Bombers were 3-6. That win over BC, the Saskatchewan loss, Edmonton winning again, and Calgary losing has sandwiched things even more. And I mean, basically, we're on to the back 9 of the season, and absolutely nothing is determined in the West. As Michael said, huge games coming up against Saskatchewan. but they're going to have to take care of Hamilton first. And I mean, this team is somewhat in disarray. And Chris Jones is now going to be the defensive play caller in Hamilton, which I think speaks to just how bad things are in Hamilton. Now, he's not technically the defensive coordinator. He's essentially volunteering for Hamilton right now because of how much he's getting paid by the Edmonton Elks. But the Ticats need all the help they can get. And Chris Jones now sits at, I believe, if my count is correct, with his 6th different Canadian Football League team in one role or another.
Yeah, I was kind of confused. I guess he's got the relationship with head coach Scott Billeck, and and that's usually what it comes down to a lot of the time in pro sports. Who do you know? And that's who's willing to give you a chance. But I don't know how you could look at what Edmonton did the last few years. I mean, sinking the franchise, not winning any games at home, losing millions of dollars, having to sell them out of community ownership to a private owner and be like, yeah, that's the guy I want to bring in as my D coordinator. And yeah, he had success in Edmonton when Mike Riley was his quarterback 10 years ago, but it didn't work out in his second stint in Edmonton, and it didn't work out in Saskatchewan. I guess he felt like he needed to make a change, which I think is fair, as Hamilton has given up far and away the most points in the league. And I guess he just called a guy that he knew and wanted to work with. But I don't know how anyone looked at Chris Jones and what they did in Edmonton over the last couple of years. How long was that losing streak at home?
4 years.
For pro sports record, never going to be beat, I would think. And you're like, yeah, that's the guy I want running my defense. And so we'll see. We'll see how it goes for Hamilton. But good luck to them, and hopefully they can turn things around because they got a lot of passionate fans in Hamilton.
Oh, they absolutely do.
Yeah,
Hamilton and Edmonton are two great markets, and it looked like it was going to be lost seasons for both of those teams. And funny enough, Hamilton's only one win behind Edmonton, but the teams could not be in different places right now, with Edmonton on a 3-game heater, moving on from Chris Jones, really getting some positive momentum going forward. And Hamilton, after those 2 wins, has just been embarrassed the last few weeks, and it seems like things were sort of falling apart. So Chris Jones back on the sidelines on Friday for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Our focus is going to be on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and Darrin Bauming is going to join us in a little bit. Hey, before we get and bring in Bauming, Dylan Samberg spoke yesterday, and of course, Samberg is going to be slamming balls at the big Manitoba Open Golf Tournament coming up in Southwood beginning tomorrow, following the footsteps of Blake Wheeler, Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor. Am I missing anyone? Or are those the 3 guys?
Morgan Barron did last year.
Morgan Barron, yes, exactly.
I think
that might be the 4.
I think
that
that's
have done it. So anyway, Dylan Samberg, and there was a big presser yesterday with Dylan and, of course, Braxton Kuntz of Breezy Bend. Good luck to Brax on getting through to the weekend, the 4-time defending Manitoba amateur champion. But here's what Dylan had to say just about his excitement for the week to play with the pros.
I think it was more so just excitement about this week than nerves or anything. Just kind of was really excited to get up here and see what some of these tournaments are all about. I haven't been to too many golf tournaments in my life, so just excited to talk to a lot of the pros and see what it's like from a different pro sport perspective, and should be a fun week.
All right, so you can get out and follow Dylan Samberg tomorrow. We'll get those tee times for you a little later on. As we mentioned, Barron, Scheifele. I don't think Morrissey ever played in this.
No.
But there's been a number of Jets that have competed in this before. This year it's Dylan Samberg. And here's the sort of the competition on his performance in the tourney with his teammates that have done it in the past.
And it'll be an important one because we'll be spending a lot of time in the locker room together. And if I don't beat him, I'm sure I'll hear about it all year. So it'll be important to beat his score.
For sure. In terms of your game, what would you say is the strengths of it, and what you hope to put on display?
Well, hopefully my short game, more like my wedges and stuff, but my driver's been doing pretty well lately. Just mainly just trying to keep it in play and just play smart golf and go from there.
Ooh, soft hands of Dylan Samberg talking about his wedges in the short game. Obviously, training camp is just around the corner and the Jets will be back together, but it did seem like the fellas spent a lot of time together this summer. Here's Dylan Samberg on seeing his teammates all summer at multiple weddings.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of weddings this summer. So it was good to see a lot of those guys, because usually you don't see them for a few months. And so it was nice to see them just check in and see how they're doing. But yeah, it was, obviously a very exciting summer for a lot of people on our team.
Yeah, well, one of those individuals was Dylan Samberg, who was one of those individuals having getting married. Congratulations to Dylan and his wife. And here's just a little bit of Dylan on his wedding and honeymoon over the summer.
It was awesome. Yeah, it was great. Obviously, a lot of stress and everything and planning leading up to it. But as far as the day of it, it went perfectly, and we couldn't be more happy. And then for the honeymoon, we went on to Greece and got to see a couple of the islands there, Santorini, Paros, and then finished off in Athens. Saw the Parthenon and all that stuff, and went through all the museums. So that was cool. And my wife and I always wanted to go to Greece. Just weren't sure about timing wise and everything, and we thought this would be the perfect time for it.
All right, there's Dylan Samberg, who'll be swinging him at Southwood beginning tomorrow in the Manitoba Open, and then embarking on a big year where he'll have certainly some increased responsibility with the absence of Brendan Dillon, in all likelihood moving up into the Jets' top four and playing on that second pairing for Scott Arniel in his defense core when the puck drops. All right, we're going to talk Bombers with Bauming coming up in a few minutes. There is so much to get to in the Canadian Football League. Chad Kelly's return, Chris Jones, the crazy West, the return of the Bombers defense. We're going to get to all of it coming up on CFL 110 right after WST today. Of course, CFL 110 is brought to you by Garage Living Winnipeg. Give our pal Pat Kanuga a call, 999-1234 for a free in-garage consultation to beautify and revolutionize your garage space before the snow flies. We'll tell you more about what Garage Living can do for you coming up today on CFL 110. If you have a move coming up, folks, there's so much stress that goes into that. Cleaning up is just stressful for some of us. Getting ready to move all of your belongings to somewhere else can be overwhelming. Take as much of the stress out of it as possible with the white glove treatment from our friends at Rolly's Transfer, the most trusted name in the moving game for over 60 years. Rolly's has an extensive logistics business that takes them throughout Winnipeg and southern Manitoba on a daily basis, which means flexible routes, flexible timing, and great prices on your move from the experts that have been doing it for Manitobans for over 60 years. Check out their new website at rollies.com. Phenomenal information on what they do, their history, services. But if you look in the top right, there's a request and estimate tab. What you're going to want to do is pop in there and use the promo code WST for a special deal for Winnipeg Sports Talk listeners on their next move for both moving services and moving supplies. Let them know when and where you're moving and what you're moving. You can even upload pictures of your furniture and boxes, and the friendly staff at Rollies will turn it around with a great quote for you, and they get you moving with the white glove treatment for Rollies. For your next move, use the most trusted name in moving for over 60 years in Manitoba, Rollies Transfer. Find out more online or request a quote today at rollies.com. The gang at Consolidated Supply has had quite the summer, but they are not done yet. Working so extensively with the golf industry all year, they had quite the first couple months with their irrigation products. They are the leaders in irrigation systems and solutions, but they've got so much more, including artificial turf and golf carts, the exclusive club car dealer in Manitoba, and other great options for your property, including hot tubs, amazing outdoor kitchen options. Of course, they are the leaders in small engine parts and repair. There's so much going on at Consolidated Supply. You got to see it for yourself. Head on down and check out their showroom, open to the public, 1395 Niagara Road East, or find out more on everything available at Consolidated Supply online at cte.ca. And I am just looking at this weather forecast for the upcoming weekend. We got the Bomber game on Friday night, 26 and sunny. Saturday looking like it's going to be 29 and sunny. Potentially a little bit of rain on Sunday. But the bottom line is you got to take advantage of these weekends right now. And Manitoba Battery has you powered for whatever you're going to be doing. You need to have your boat ready to go, your camper ready to go. Maybe you're hitting on an ATV or a bike. Batteries for literally everything waiting for you at Manitoba Battery. Now with 2 locations, Logan Avenue and their new location on Dover Court in the south end of the city. And not only will you be able to shop local, but you'll get the best prices in town, period. Beating the pants off the big box stores, not to mention the best service in town. If you can't make it down, no problem. Give Manitoba Battery a call or order online at manitobabattery.com. And Donnie and the gang will deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. So for all your battery needs, keep it local and get it delivered to you. Manitoba Battery, you can order online today at manitobabattery.com. All right, we'll get Remo back in here. I guess expecting Bauming to pop in the next few minutes to chop it up after practice?
Yeah, I think that is the plan. So I sent him a gentle reminder saying, hey, we're here ready when you are. So hopefully he pops in.
Well, we'll get him in here. I mean, and as I said, we're going to focus in on the Bombers right now. But we get going with this CFL matchup, the CFL week, and a game of much importance to Winnipeg fans, in that the Saskatchewan Roughriders are heading to Toronto on Thursday. And this is going to be the return of Chad Kelly, Remis, and this has been a very controversial topic around the Canadian Football League. Certainly this week, as his suspension was ended after 9 games, and he's been granted a final opportunity to get it right. Like, as I said, I know Jeff's going to have a ton of takes on this when we get to CFL 110. Just from a football perspective, though, we'll focus on that for a minute, because obviously there's a lot more that goes into the Chad Kelly conversation. But when we're talking about the West, what the Riders are up to, I think the Riders are going to be a very ornery team, considering the way they lost that game to Montreal last week. They really should have won. I mean, when you miss 4 field goals and one of them gets returned for a touchdown, pretty tough to overcome. Trevor Harris was awesome in that game. And I don't know. I mean, we saw a very rusty Nathan Rourke with only 1 week of practice, an abbreviated week of practice. And it's going to be somewhat the same thing for Chad Kelly, although he's going back to the team he was with last year. What are your expectations of this game and Chad Kelly in his first game back with Toronto from a football perspective?
Ooh. I think it's going to go better than it did for Nathan Rourke. He's still got a lot of the same receivers there. I think he does a lot of improvising and uses his legs. I know Nathan Rourke is a running, he's not afraid to run either, but, you saw when Chad Kelly came in, I hate to bring this up, in the Grey Cup against the Bombers, he really gave their defense problems. And I know that was a couple years ago, but I think that's just what he brings. He's an improviser. He can throw as well. He was the MOP last season, as much as many of...
Allegedly.
As much as everyone here, I think, disagrees. Like, I don't even think he had the most outstanding quarterback season last year, and the numbers show that. But I think he's going to do okay. At home, we've seen road teams struggle this year, although they all won last week. I don't think that's going to continue. But for Saskatchewan, and they got a big bump last week in quarterback play. And you talk about PFF ratings that they put out on CFL.ca. I believe Trevor Harris was the top quarterback, and that was a big bounce back for him. So I think, there were some concerns maybe earlier on with the Riders when they had Paterson at quarterback, but Harris has really stabilized them. And I think this is going to be a very big tilt. But Thursday games are very confusing. It's a short week. Sometimes guys get injured. You see sloppy football. I think anything can happen. I'd probably lean Toronto in this one, but Saskatchewan, they certainly deserve better last week.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the Riders are a real good team. And here's the thing that is on the table right now. And again, this will be, if the Bombers win on Friday night against Hamilton and make it to the 3 in a row, that will bring Mike O'Shea within 1 win of Bud Grant for the all-time lead for coaching wins in the Winnipeg Football Club's history. If you could possibly win that and then win in Regina on Labor Day, Mike O'Shea would have the opportunity to become the winningest coach in Blue Bomber history at the Banjo Bowl against those same Saskatchewan Roughriders. And that, I think, is something that every Bomber fan would like to be signed up for. Let's look ahead to Friday and get the latest on the club right now with our pal Darrin Bauming of Bonfire Sports. DB, what's going on? How did you enjoy that? What was it, a 15-day break between games before getting back at it on the weekend?
Frickin' loved it. 10 games to start the season without a bye week was a go. And, you pepper in a little bit of hockey writing I'm doing for NHL.com and my summer prospect series and development camp and all of that. Getting a moment to, take a breath, enjoy the weather, and relax a little bit. It was very well received. Let's put it that way.
Well, and I think it was well received by the team as well. And I mean, listen, I don't think they could have been as bad as the start to the season was by the record. Hard to imagine going into a bye on a more of a high note with that 25-0 shutout of BC, and then because of the fact that was an early game on the Thursday. They had the bye week the next week and then played on the Sunday. It actually felt like 2 bye weeks back to back. But man, this team, and most importantly, this defense did not miss a beat in BC. And what I think was thought is very unlikely, a sweep of BC after the team was 2-6, has become a reality. They got Hamilton on Friday and right back in the middle of things in the craziest and tightest West Division that we've seen at this point in a heck of a long time.
No question. And when it comes to the Bombers defense, you start talking about the guys that are contributing to that level of success. I think Adam Bighill and his availability moving forward after suffering what appeared to be a non-contact injury and not finishing the game in Vancouver is a concern right now, and waiting for more information on that. Willie Jefferson, I think, being activated more because of the return of Taiwan Garbett and Celestin Haba from the 6-game injured list, and just having more talent on that other side of the defensive line. Retta Cramdy, I think, has been phenomenal as a Canadian who took this job from an American, a very tough position to play, the dime back spot or the strong side linebacker. And to do it as a Canadian and do it at the level that Retta Cramdy has been incredible. Kyrie Wilson injured right now, but to see Tony Jones and, some of those other guys step in and really step up. I think the defensive backfield is the one area people are most impressed with. I think for a long time, we know how good Dietrich Nichols is. I think he's a top 10 player in the CFL, regardless of position. You add in, a young stud Canadian in Tyrell Ford, who I think is definitely in the MOC conversation in 2024. Evan Holm has had some outstanding games. I think he's playing at an all-star caliber level. It's nice to see Brandon Alexander bring it. I can go on and on, as you know I often do, Hustler, right? But while all of those guys have been great, and the conversation this season around who's the MOP in the CFL. I say this tongue-in-cheek, of course, but maybe it's Jordan Younger as the first-year defensive coordinator of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. He seems to have taken what Richie Hall has built and added to it, making it very difficult for opposing offenses right now. Winnipeg is getting pressure. They're covering well. Guys are making impact plays, taking the opportunity to gamble when it is going to pay dividends. And well, we're seeing now a team that I don't know, whatever the numbers are. They haven't allowed many touchdowns at all in the last 4 games, and the reason why they're playing so well.
Well, I'm glad you brought up Jordan Younger, because what he's done with this defense, which had some big question marks coming into the season. I mean, I reiterated this before on the show, but I think back to our conversations about the Bombers going into week 1. I mean, we were expecting a lot of overs to hit in Bomber games. Listen, they spent their money to get Dalton Schoen back, to get Brady Oliveira back. It was a real focus on continuing a high-powered offense. And we're going to need to see some younger, cheaper players come in and show up on D. And I don't think anyone was sure that was the case. We thought, well, the Bombers can go out and they'll beat teams 40-30. No problem. It couldn't be more different. I mean, the offense has struggled at times. And listen, the defense had a slower start. There was a ton of injuries early on. They got torched in that game yardage-wise against BC. But game by game by game, they have been better. And I think back to the game in Saskatchewan, where they only allowed the 19 points. I thought they did enough for them to win. The comedy of errors in the Toronto game, for them to lose that game, giving up only 6 points on defense, was, to be honest, I think indicative of just the way things were going for the Bombers in the first half. But my God, Darren, a shutout streak of over 105 minutes. I mean, we can talk about that garbage touchdown at the end, which I'm sure didn't, the team didn't like. And they certainly tried to stop it, calling the timeout at the end. But back-to-back games against Vernon Adams and Nathan Rourke. I don't know what more you can say about this defense, but let me ask you, you're around the team on a daily basis. I don't think people and fans know a lot about Jordan Younger. What have you noticed about the energy that he's brought in and the way that he's built this defense and continued to get the most out of them, taking them to heights that I don't think anyone could have expected?
Well, if you go back to the beginning with Jordan Younger, at least in professional football, time in the National Football League and time in the CFL, of course, with the Toronto Argonauts and being a teammate of Mike O'Shea. Jordan Younger was a very, very talented football player. And you can say that about a lot of guys, but his combination of size and speed, and then mixed in with the mental capacity to be very versatile, play corner, half, dime backer, in the box, safety, whatever it is, made him a very, very special player. There's a reason why he was in the NFL. That size-speed combo often will get you through the majority of training camp without doing anything. But that all said, seeing his transition from an outstanding player to a defensive assistant, joining Mike O'Shea's staff after being, an assistant alongside him with the Argos. Scott Milanovic was head coach. Chris Jones was the DC. Mike O'Shea was the special teams coordinator, and Jordan Younger was one of the assistants there in winning the 100th Grey Cup in 2012. And seeing Younger come to Winnipeg, learn under, I don't know if there's anybody better in the CFL today to learn under defensively than Richie Hall, and to have the ear and eyes of Mike O'Shea in the same building. But when you talk to players about who Jordan Younger is, how he is as a coach, they call him Coach JY. And I think that kind of, it tells the tale of how they see him. He is a player's coach. He is somebody that the players respect like a brother. Now, there is an authority there, of course. He is the defensive coordinator, but they work together. He values their opinion as much as they value his opinion, whether it's film and game study and scouting and scheming and game planning for the upcoming opponent. They all work together. And that level of respect that Jordan Younger has received or gained or earned in that Blue Bombers locker room, and really in pro football since, he turned professional as a player, is reflected in the level of effort that he gets from his players. I think he was a bit of a diamond in the rough. Not a lot of people were talking about Jordan Younger this offseason, but there's a reason why Winnipeg rolled out some cash, gave him a raise, gave him the new defensive coordinator title, and kept Richie Hall in-house as an assistant. Very smart move by O'Shea, Walters, and the Blue Bombers brass.
It's looking better and better every time this team takes the field. And what's impressed me the most is the work that he's done getting the most and building up the confidence of the younger players. And there's no better example of that, maybe in the Canadian Football League, than Tyrell Ford. I mean, we talk about Nathan Rourke coming back as a Canadian star, and Trey Ford's there. And, when he's been really good for Edmonton. He hasn't been the most impressive guy in the family this year in the CFL. It's his twin brother right here. I've been paying attention to the PFF rankings throughout the year, and even early on, Tyrell Ford, after about 4 weeks, was starting to pop near the top. He's been the top-rated corner in the league for the better part of the last quarter of the season, and the picks are coming, the confidence is coming, and we already knew that this guy was a world-class athlete, just like his brother, Darrin, but Ford's emergence in the secondary, along with Dietrich Nichols, I think has taken this defense to a whole nother level. And, this is what they thought they might be getting. I'm not sure we expected it to come this quickly, but man, you want to talk about a guy that's making the most of his opportunity right now and obviously getting some great coaching and support behind the scenes.
When Tyrell Ford was at the University of Waterloo playing defensive back and his brother was the quarterback, they were the best athletes on the field no matter who they were playing. The interesting part of it was, like in conversations I've had with people who, watch U Sports a lot closer than I do, is that Tyrell Ford was kind of the chairman of the board, right? He sat back there. Nobody really threw at him. It was a bit of a Tyrell Ford island, when it came to how opposing teams were attacking Waterloo's defense. So when he came out of that graduating class, went to the combine, blew the doors off the 40-yard, and it was something like a 4.340. It's like, whoa, who is this guy? You don't see numbers like that in the Canadian football draft combine too often. I think Kyle Walters being Kyle Walters was a very, very fast safety, a defensive back in the OUA in U Sports in his playing days. Seeing that in Tyrell Ford, I think he's like, okay, I see something in this kid, and, invested a second-round draft pick to get him. All of the conversation has been around his brother because he plays that marquee position of quarterback, and he's done some great things. I think this is the Ford's league to take on offense and defense in the years moving forward. Tyrell is the real deal, and quarterbacks that were picking on him early, throwing his ball a lot. He was getting a lot of volume early in the season because he's a kind of a Canadian first-year starter. Well, they're thinking again, but there's not many guys in this Blue Bombers defense you could throw at. I don't want to throw to Dietrich Nichols' side of the field. He's going to burn me. I don't want to throw it at Tyrell Ford and Evan Holmes' side of the field either.
By the way, I give a quick shout out to the son of Dirk, who was the winner of our WST Coolbet contest to join us on the way to Labor Day. And I got to tell you, Darrin, I mean, listen, if you can't have fun in Regina on Labor Day weekend, you got to check your pulse. I mean, regardless of what the records are.
Well, if you're on the Huss bus too, I think it's going to be it's going to be a good time.
We'll definitely have a good time. But the fact of this turnaround and what's happened in the West, and then as I mentioned when bringing you in, the potential for Mike O'Shea. If I don't want to get past this game because you know how that ends up, but Bombers are huge favorites in this game. You take care of business in this game. We go to Regina on that weekend, and there is the opportunity to tie Bud Grant for the all-time winningest coach in CFL history, and then potentially break the record in front of a sold-out crowd for the Banjo Bowl. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. But there is so anyways, shout out to his son of Dirk. We'll look forward to seeing you on the bus. A lot of comments here. Here's Phyllis. Jordan Younger was one of Connor's 3 stars a week ago. He's doing a great job coaching the D. Doug Phil, and this is interesting. Would Younger be the likely successor to head coach for Bombers once O'Shea moves on? And a lot of people think that O'Shea's likely to be a legend here and retire a Bomber. And listen, he's still a young man. I mean, it's not like he's in a hurry to hang them up anytime soon. I'll tell you what, Jordan Younger does the job that he's doing with this Bomber defense for a year or two. It might not be in Winnipeg because Coach O'Shea's still going to be here, but you know that people are paying attention around the league to what he is doing. I don't think that this team is in any way thinking of any sort of succession plan at this point, but I'll tell you what, if we're doing a stock watch of coaches in the CFL, Jordan Younger has been a rocket ship going up so far this season. Let's go to the other side of the football. listen, the offense has been doing enough to get it done. And I thought Zach had a pretty productive game. He had that one late pick that was the lone blemish, almost passed for 30 yards. And they did pass more. I mean, Brady only got 10 carries yesterday. Part of me thinks that, listen, and this is a Mike O'Shea philosophy, when your defense is playing as well as they are right now, you don't need to press. You don't need to take chances. They're more than happy with playing a field position game at times and making the most of their opportunities. I do think, maybe not this week, but certainly in the back-to-back against Saskatchewan, who's got a hell of a defense themselves, that we're going to need to see this offense get to that next level that we've sort of been waiting for the majority of this season. But a nice start with Kenny Lawler back and what that did, particularly for some of the other receivers like Nick Dembski.
Yeah, and Ontario Wilson too. I think the load off of Dembski and Wilson combined is a huge thing to kind of open things up. I can't say this enough, how devastating a blow it was to the Blue Bombers and the offense to lose Dalton Schoen for the season cannot be overstated. Zach Collaros and Dalton Schoen had immediate chemistry when Schoen joined this team a couple years ago and made the team, and didn't just make the team out of camp, but locked down a starting job out of camp. It was immediate how the chemistry just clicked between Schoen and Collaros, and it was a special connection. You added in Kenny Lawler, Dembski, all those other guys. It's been the Blue Bombers offense over the last couple of years has kind of been, Wild West, shoot from the hip, and they could do a lot of different things and go for those deep shots downfield and explosion plays and get creative and all of that. This season, we thought it was going to be an expansion on that when you add in Chris Streveler, but losing Kenny Lawler to injury in week 1, losing Schoen soon after to injury, for the season, really changed things quickly. And I think, changes on the offensive line really contributed to Zach Collaros' slow start. I think he has settled in, and I've seen a change in the play calling, the game planning that offensive coordinator Buck Pierce and Zach Collaros have implemented over these last couple games. Giveaways, turnovers have been a huge, huge problem. So to be a little bit more conservative, I understand Brady maybe didn't run the ball as much as we expected him to last week with just 10 carries, but I think that was maybe more an operation of going away from what the BC Lions were expecting. I'm seeing the ball come out of Zach Collaros' hands a lot quicker. I'm seeing them rely less on long progressions in the pass game where Collaros has to go 1, 2, 3 Mississippi in the pocket before letting the ball go. It's get the ball out quick and find plays that develop in a faster manner. That, I think, has led to some success. But at the end of the day, Hustler, their point totals of, 14 or 9 or 60 or 25 points, that sort of, they're not scoring enough. You look at the trends across the league, the winning team generally has 28, 35 plus points. Winnipeg has not been in that neighborhood nearly enough. And I think the defense is making up for that. And they're being conservative to, let Collaros come along and the offense develop and not take too many risks to turn the ball over, because that's how they've lost games. But they do need to find a way to score more. When it comes to later in the season and teams are going to find ways to eventually inch their way through this, smothering Blue Bombers defense, they're going to have to find a way to score 30 points. 25 plus at least on a weekly basis. Will that come against the Saskatchewan Roughriders? I don't know. That defense is going to be very tough in the home and home. The Ticats are intriguing. I'm really looking forward to Friday night, Hustler, because you add in Chris Jones, who's working pro bono, by the way, taking over that defense. A new broom sweeps clean. Can he make something happen and turn that league worst defense into something a little bit more substantial?
Well, I would say hopefully that takes a while and it doesn't start on Friday, because personally what I'd like to see the most, listen, defense, just keep doing what you're doing. It's like a pitcher when he's hot. You just don't even talk to him. Just continue the job. I'd love to see the offense really break out and have a performance that gives them, some significant momentum heading into Saskatchewan for the Labor Day game, where, of course, they didn't get into the end zone and only put 3 field goals on the board in that 19-9 loss earlier this season. It's a game that the Bombers simply have to have. I mean, there's no wiggle room because of of what they left on the table earlier on this year. And a loss at home to Hamilton would really take a lot of the positives out of what they did against BC. You win, though, and you get that offense feeling even a little bit more better. I think they're poised to go into Regina and be a very, very tough out for a Rider team that has played very well at home so far this year. And frankly, as we all saw, absolutely deserved to win that game against Montreal, but they didn't.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Hustler? I heard you talking a little bit earlier to Remo about your thoughts on the Saskatchewan Roughriders. I think you and I getting into a good debate on the 1930 crew bus out to Regina about who this Roughriders team is. And then, seeing how they do this week will be interesting. And they're trying to get healthy again and all of that. I lean more towards believing the Saskatchewan Roughriders are a little bit more pretenders than legit. You seem to, you have stated you like the Saskatchewan Roughriders.
I think their defense is really good, and you need that, especially come the cold. I mean, that's been the base of the Bombers. But I also think that Trevor Harris, like when he is in, they've got a lot of weapons. Like they're able to play at a high level. And frankly, I really thought they did. I was so impressed with the way they moved it against the best defense in the league in Montreal, although the Bombers would have something to say on that. But again, you know what? That's a game that you need to win. And, much like the Bombers, where we can say, hey, listen, they played really well, but they had all those turnovers and they lost. There's a lot of things that go into playing winning football. And that third aspect, the special teams, was a big, big Achilles heel. But, I mean, to me, I think it's funny. I would have said to you a while ago that BC is the team to beat. And many people will still say that because of the quarterback position. I think we assume that they'll be getting much better quarterback play down the stretch.
No doubt.
But I think the argument right now, at this moment, heading into this week, I think Winnipeg and Saskatchewan are the 2 best teams in the league. And can you imagine for a moment a scenario where these 2 teams were playing for a trip to BC in the Grey Cup? That seemed like very, very unlikely earlier this year. Now where the teams are, I expect them both to be playoff teams and potentially a 4th meeting of the season with everything on the line coming up in November. Bauming, with the game on Friday, you and Walby will be firing it up tomorrow. Fill people in on what you and the big guy have cooking on Bonfire heading into the big game.
Yeah, Chris Walby has been on his game lately. You get that guy out at the lake in the summertime with some cold ones. He's bringing it every single week on Game Day Winnipeg and our pregame show. It's been a fascinating year in the CFL, Hustler, and I'll just wrap up by saying this. Something that Chris and I will talk about on the pregame tomorrow is so often we see games come down to the final possession, the final 2-3 minutes of a game. No lead is safe in the CFL. Well, what we've seen through the first half of the season and now looking towards the second, that same thing stands true in the standings. No lead is safe. This West Division is wide open for the taking, and the Blue Bombers definitely on an upward trajectory right now. It's going to be fascinating to see how they come out of Labor Day and the Banjo Bowl and look towards that final third stretch of the season.
Good stuff, man. We'll look forward to jumping over with the raid after WST tomorrow for you and Bluto, and get plenty of rest next week. Plenty of rest next week, because I have a feeling that will be few and far in between once we get to Regina. DB, thanks for doing this, buddy. Great stuff.
Always good to be with you, Huss. Cheers.
Good. There's Darrin Bauming of Bonfire Sports. Again, tomorrow, right after WST, we'll fire the crew over for a little bombing in Walby. Bonfire Sports Bomber Game Day, getting you ready for the Bombers and Ticats on Friday night. Seeing that we're already over 30,000 tickets sold for the game on Friday night. It is 90s night. Fred Penner's going to be in the house and performing, I believe. So if you haven't got your tickets, cop them and get out there. No better way to kick off a weekend here in the summer in southern Manitoba than seeing the Bombers at Princess Auto Stadium. Of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsors of the Bombers, and WST invites all of you to get down to the Princess Auto tailgate zone before the game. Opening at 5:30, 2 hours before the game. $5 beers, $3.50 pop and hot dogs, inflatables for the kids, entertainment. It continues to grow every single game. Get there early, take it all in, and make that trip to Princess Auto Stadium even better with the Princess Auto tailgate. And a huge thanks to Princess Auto, headquartered and founded right here in Winnipeg. And of course, the place where you'll find the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. See them on Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, or shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. It looks like it's going to be glorious on Friday. I hope the food and beverage staff of Princess Auto Stadium have stocked up on plenty of Canadian Club for Bomber fans, because I have a feeling if it's anything like the previous games this year, it is going to be another party. Of course, Canadian Club is the official spirit of the Bombers, available throughout Princess Auto Stadium. And in addition to the original Canadian whiskey, Canadian Club, you can also get CC and ginger ale premixed cocktails in cans at the game. Literally elite summer drink. Try it at the game this weekend, and next time you're popping into your local beer store, take a look, because CC and ginger ale premixed cocktails in cans available at vendors, and of course the entire Canadian Club family waiting for you on your next trip to your local Manitoba liquor marts. If you've got fencing or overhead door needs, people, there's only one name you need to know, and that's Wallace & Wallace, the fencing and overhead door specialist since 1946. If your property needs the security and protection of a new fence, or if winter did a number on your old one, give them a call. They have vinyl, ornamental, welded wire, chain link, or wood fences. And if you do need a new garage door, they've got the largest selection of overhead garage doors in Winnipeg. Perfect matching for your home. Give them a call at 452-2700. The Wallace & Wallace team will arrange a time to come out and give you a free estimate. You can also visit them at wallacefences.com or pop down to their showroom on Lawson Crescent off of Kenniston. And while we get geeked for a trip to Regina on Labor Day, you know that September's just around the corner, change of the season and more. Guys, heading into fall, if you need to up your menswear game, don't wait. Head on down to F Apparel at 190 Smith Street downtown. Custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. If you're getting married or in a wedding party, make sure to talk to the fellas at F about a 15% discount when the wedding party gets their suits at F Apparel. You can see them in person at 190 Smith Street or make an appointment at F. That's EPH Apparel.com. All right, let's get Scotty Billeck in for a weekly visit on WST. Billeck, what's going on? How are you?
I'm good. Second week of holidays. I'm chilling. I've also, okay, so I'm late to the party on the bubbly thing, but I've enjoyed. I'm starting to
flavor?
enjoy it. Peach. I haven't really tried anything else yet, but I like the peach one. So.
And what is that? Like a flavored bubbled water, like carbonated water?
Yeah. So like for me, it was an acquired taste. Like you get like you drink it. It's like sparkling water, right? Let's see if you ever had like Perrier or whatever before. But like it gives you sort of like a hint of flavor, and I've been trying to get off the diet soda.
As I slug my second Diet Pepsi.
Yeah. I mean, I love it, right? But I'm trying to not have as much whatever's in it, aspartame, I guess. So I've actually enjoyed it. So anyways, that's your weekly
There's your tip. Yeah. What about highlights of holidays? I mean, have you done anything productive? Have you gone anywhere?
No,
anything to report? Anything to report whatsoever?
This weekend. No. Probably going to the States this weekend. As I said last week, still dealing with a bit of a health issue with my dad. So, yeah, I've been doing that. So a lot of that, but this week's been better. And yeah, hopefully going to the U.S. this weekend. So.
Well, speaking of things being better, how about the plight of the Bombers going into Friday, considering what we thought might happen at 2-6, facing the high-octane BC Lions?
Yeah.
Who were completely tamed by the Blue Bomber defense over 8 quarters.
Yeah, so I look at that game and I back it up to the Thursday night game, or maybe it was Friday, whenever Edmonton played. And I was like, okay, well, Edmonton put some pressure on, right? Like Edmonton wins. Now they're tied with the Bombers. And, if the Bombers lose, it now becomes, the Bombers aren't in third place. Edmonton's right with them. Obviously, they play Edmonton a few times coming up here. But it was interesting to see. Okay, well, how are the Bombers going to respond to this, and how are the Bombers going to respond after their bye week? And the whole week is talking about Nathan Rourke and the return of Nathan Rourke and blah 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 blah, right? And Bombers went out and absolutely put it. They stuffed all that back in, and they essentially did, like, that game to me was a 20-3 game, right? Like, to me, I don't care about the bonus points at the end and all that. None of that matters. The touchdown, the 2-point conversion, whatever. That's all garbage time. Like, they held them to, what was it, 106 minutes and 25 seconds, I believe, of shutout football over the two games.
Unheard of in the CFL.
Yeah. And then Nathan Rourke. I mean, you got to give Nathan Rourke credit. The guy hadn't played, and they kept saying on TSN, I think it was like 644 days or 43 days or whatever it was. Like, he hadn't played a down of football in that long. So fair enough. Like, he wasn't going to be otherworldly. We'll see what he's like this week against Ottawa. But regardless, the Bombers defense came out and did what they should have done. And when they continued to play like that defense, it just gets better, right? I mean, some of those balls were gift wrapped. The 2 interceptions were probably gift wrapped, don't get me wrong, but they were great. And just another defensive display. Only Stanback could really get it some yards on the ground. And the offense did a good job. And if I go back to last week, I said that the first throw of the drive would be the deep ball to Kenny Lawler. Was the second throw of the drive. I think they ran one with Brady on the first one, or it was a catch and run on. Wow, either way, it was the second one. So I would have lost that bet, but still pretty close. And I thought Kenny Lawler looked great. Dembski looked great. Zach looked good. Like, you couple those over the shoulders to Nick Dembski, one on the sidelines, one in the end zone. Those are both like perfectly thrown balls. Zach had the one pick, obviously, which, I get what he's doing there. It was kind of a quick shot, and, they read it well. But I thought the offense had another really good
Quite a bit more room for Dembski and the fellas out there with 89 back right? in the lineup.
Exactly. That. And then, in the fourth quarter, like, they hadn't run the ball a lot, but Brady chugs along for that 25-yard run that sets up the field goal in the fourth. And you're looking at that, and it's like, that's what Brady's there for, right? I mean, Brady can do a lot of good things in this offense, but when the Bombers are leading and they need that first down, they need that, that sort of like final nail in the coffin. Brady's often there to deliver. And you hadn't seen a lot of the helmet slapping until then, but yeah, he definitely got a few. And all the players are sort of doing it now too. They go up to him and they're smacking their helmets the same way. So yeah, there's a lot of energy. Bombers, they haven't practiced. I think they practiced today. So I mean, it's a short week essentially, right? I mean, they go from Sunday to playing on Friday night. They face Hamilton, but here's the thing. You look at the record case, so Hamilton, you don't want to take them lightly, but they win. The Bombers are 5-6. BC plays Ottawa. BC could be 5-6 too. The Bombers could be in second place by the end of this weekend, right? And setting up what could be an incredible Labor Day plus Banjo Bowl. Potentially, if you take both, if you're the Bombers, you're now back in first place in the West. And I mean, this team was terrible to start. Right, the 0-4 start. I mean, it was really bad to start the year, and now we're talking about, if they take care of business this week and can go toe to toe with Saskatchewan, and beat them in at home and obviously away at the Labor Day Classic. I mean, what a turnaround that would be heading into sort of the last third of the CFL.
Yeah,
season.
it didn't seem likely that we would even potentially have this conversation at 2-6. But, with the wins over BC and everything else is broken Winnipeg and Edmonton's way over the last couple of weeks. I mean, the Riders have lost. They've lost when they should lose. They've lost when they should have won, in particular last week against Montreal. And, of course, BC's in a bit of free fall right now, losing 4 in a row after starting at 5-1. And what's really juicy is the potential for Mike O'Shea to be in a position to become the winningest coach in Blue Bomber history at the Banjo Bowl. Now, you got to take care of business against Hamilton and find a way to win, which Mike O'Shea's done a lot of in Saskatchewan against the Riders, the head coach of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But, man, 100 wins, along with Kyle Walters, the first head coach and GM combo ever to do it in the Canadian Football League. I mean, sometimes, you know, when talking about the team with friends or whatever, if you take a step back and think about where we came from, 30 years or 29 years without a championship, the depths of where this franchise was when these guys took over, and the struggles in the first couple years, what an incredible story that these gentlemen have authored. And as we said, you may as well just get working on the bust right now for this statue outside Princess Auto Stadium for Mike O'Shea. But for such a young guy that has done so much, I mean, well on his way to being a historic, I would say he already is amongst our sports community. But there's some milestones coming up, and there's the potential to do it in one of the more spectacular ways. And considering, while Mike O'Shea has been the coach, what the Bombers have done to the Saskatchewan Roughriders in the regular season, in the playoffs, in their new stadium, I can't think of a more perfect scenario for Mike O'Shea to pass Bud Grant than to do it against Saskatchewan.
Yeah, it's an incredible ride, right? I mean, my first year of sort of, you know, in this business, in this industry was 2013. And so that was the year that the Bombers absolutely just flopped, right? I mean, it was probably the most defining year, at least I want to say it's got to be one of the more defining years. I'd have to look back through history, but you know, one of the more defining years of this franchise, right? I mean, it's a storied franchise. It's old, and there's been a lot of success here. But bringing in Kyle Walters, bringing in Mike O'Shea, Wade Miller taking over as the interim kind of CEO, I guess it was at the time. All three of those, you know, the sort of the Blue Bombers, what do you call it? Not the trifecta, it's the Trinity. That is the word I'm looking for, the other T word. But yeah, they've come a long way because, you know, the first season with Mike O'Shea, what are they 3-15? I want to say, or 4-14. The next year they were like 5-13. It wasn't great. And after 2015, you're wondering, okay, well, you know, are they going to stick with this? Like, you know, there was a little bit, but they started to bring in, like, you know, Michael Shea talks about it now, and he talks about, you know, they had to change the culture around here first, right? And once the culture got changed, then you started getting some players, and then some guys started coming. You got the Stanley Bryants that came and signed with this team. And then it kind of went from there, right? You kept getting guys, and then obviously 2019 and getting Zach Collaros late in the season, and now ever since then you're talking about one of the best franchises, if not the best franchise in the last, you know, at least in the last 6 years in this league. They haven't won the Grey Cup in all those years, but they've been there for the last 4. And you know, have another chance of doing it this year. And so now you're thinking about, you know, for a lot of Bomber fans who were around for the Bud Grant years, it's almost like that guy was untouchable, right? I mean, and of course, look at all the winning he did, all you know, everything that guy achieved. There's a statue of him out there, you know, right outside the first gate and the Bomber store. Yeah, he's revered around here. But Mike O'Shea and again, you got to sort of step back and look at it, and there's still a long way to go, I think, with Mike O'Shea. But he could go down as the best coach in this franchise history, and arguably, he might already be there, right? And because you just got to look at exactly what he did, right? I mean, and now this franchise is looked at probably the pinnacle of CFL football. I mean, you could look at Saskatchewan or maybe BC, but you know.
Oh, it's Winnipeg. Winnipeg is the standard right now, on the field, off the field. Listen, we talk a lot about Mike O'Shea, who's a huge part of the on the field, Kyle Walters as well. We can't 100%. Really talk about this era and those two guys without talking with Wade Miller, because as great of a job that Mike has done with the football product on the field, Wade Miller has done an equally great job putting asses in seats and completely changing the way this team is perceived in the community And the bottom line, the game day experience, which is undoubtedly the standard in the Canadian Football League, and it's not close.
Yeah, he made it fun to come to a Bombers game, right? And he made it fun to come before a Bombers game, right? They introduced the whole tailgating thing and the free, what is it, like $5 beers before whatever, and cheap hot dogs, right? Like you can really go and have a good day. Parking doesn't cost a whole lot. You can get some cheap food beforehand. Then you can come watch the game. We all know it's the biggest social in the North End zone at the Rum Hut in Winnipeg every week.
It's every game.
Absolutely wild. But that's the thing, right? Like it's the atmosphere. It's not if you don't like football, you don't have to come and watch the game. You can still have a good time, right? And it's very rare that you can say that in really anywhere, right? But this is a place where you come and it's just you can't. Wade Miller's the architect of it, and he wanted it, and he went and got it, right? And he did everything he said he was going to do. He's been you still see Wade Miller all the time. Every week he's out there talking to fans, whatever. It's he's really made it seem like everybody's a part of the success of this team, and everybody's a part. Like they're just the in football, what do you call it? Well, you don't want to call him the 13th man because that doesn't sound very good, especially if you're a Rough Riders fan. But yeah, you know what I mean. Like you're the sixth man, right? You're the extra quarterback, whatever you want to call it in football.
And just on that, and I mean, it was funny. I had my old buddy Matt Baker, who was on with us last year, working now, former TSN guy. He's with the Lions, and I hooked up with Bakes and a bunch of the Lions staff at the ballpark the day before the game. And one of the girls that he was with was the VP of Business Operations, was a huge part of the Grey Cup, and they were really coming here to kind of pick the brains of some of the Bomber brain trusts, see some of the things that Winnipeg is doing and try and recreate that, and obviously work together because the next two Grey Cups are Vancouver and Winnipeg. But I saw her at the game in and around the corner right by the North End, and one of the things that really stood out about where we were was that, I mean, it was like a nightclub. And I mean, we are talking like the age of that area, as some of the people that have been there for a long time might spend a little less time in the midst of the insanity and watching the game. I mean, you're talking like 18 to 24, like a few thousand young people, which is exactly what this league needs and exactly what every other team in the league is trying to achieve. So,
and good on BC. Like, give BC credit because BC's
Amar Doman's done an incredible job,
right? Exactly, and so I think there's a lot you can learn from Wade Miller, and this shouldn't be an ego thing in this league, because I think there's a lot that other teams in this league that aren't attracting the fans that Winnipeg and Regina, like it's easy in Winnipeg and Regina, but it doesn't mean that you should take it for granted either, right? And I think
it wasn't for a long time. Like this just doesn't happen. Like you just open, you just say, hey, there's a game this day, and it fills up. There's a ton of work that went into it. And listen, that's going to continue on Friday night, already over 30,000. Get your tickets, get out to the Princess Auto tailgate zone early. And if you haven't been to a game this year, this will be a great one to do. And of course, the Bombers got to take care of their business and set up an amazing home and home between Winnipeg and Saskatchewan Labor Day weekend, and then back the following Saturday for the Banjo Bowl. Scott Billeck of the Winnipeg Sun's with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Scott, let's just transition over to hockey for a couple minutes. So we got to yesterday morning.
Crazy,
after all that machinations, trading Cody Ceci, and they decide to punt on both of the players. I have to admit, looking at where the Oilers are, what their roster looks like, thinking about the goal for this year, I think they actually did the right thing. It was totally their own doing that they put themselves in that position in the first place. But I do think Edmonton, as far as winning the cup next season, is in a pretty darn good spot to get through the first half of the year to accrue cap space and then to make a significant move or two to bolster that blue line in and around the deadline. What did you think about it? Were you surprised that they walked on both players, especially after moving Ceci?
Yeah, on both. Yeah, like I thought they would probably try and figure out. The problem is the guy that you want to figure out is probably Broberg, right? and he was the one that signed for like whatever it was, 4.4 million or
they
whatever.
They offered him 1.1 for 2 years.
That's wild. Eh? I mean, that's yeah, and no wonder the guy signs an offer sheet, right? I mean, you would feel, and don't get me wrong, Broberg played most of the year in the AHL last year, but he showed very well in the Stanley Cup playoffs, right? He played all 7 games in the finals. So, again, you got to go by what you know, and if you see a guy that can step in and play like that in the final, I mean, I'm not surprised that St. Louis decided that they might want a guy like that. But yeah, I mean, I think that was the one, but I think it was brilliant by Armstrong in St. Louis because the player that they probably wanted to keep, and no disrespect to Dylan Holloway, good player, but I mean, that's a team that has a lot of players like that, and he's probably too expensive too for what they want to do, but you want to keep Broberg around. So yeah, I'm surprised they didn't find a way to do that. I know Puckpedia was talking about, they could have put like Vander Kane on. So there is a way to do it. I'm not the best at the cap stuff. But they could have had Vander Kane, but you're still kicking the can down the road because, Kane was going to be healthy at some point or another. And you're right. LTIR, you put a guy in LTIR, you can't accrue cap space. I mean, that's just that's where it ends, right? And I think it's a good thing for them because when you accrue that space, you can go and address your needs. And if you need a guy on defense come the trade deadline, well, then you're going to have the money to go get him, right? And so
they're going to need a couple. I mean,
looking at that roster, they are going to
need
a couple. 100% they are. And so this is, I guess it's a bit of a calculated risk at the end of the day, right? I mean, Broberg could turn into a really good defenseman, but you're chasing a cup, right? And you got to make tough decisions when you're chasing a cup. And the idea of probably signing Broberg or matching that contract, maybe putting Evander on LTIR, you're probably just not a good way to give yourself options come the trade deadline because they wouldn't have been able to without trying to trade something out or
for sure.
And
listen, it's a cautionary tale. It's a cautionary tale
100%
for GMs to get a little too horned up on July 1st.
Yeah.
And think that they can even go that extra mile at the expense of their RFAs.
Well, that's what Armstrong said, right? Like he's sort of like,
yeah, and listen, we have not seen. There's a reason why these things don't happen. It's because GMs know that if they put themselves in a situation, it's not like there's this gentleman's agreement, no one's going to do it. It's that guys say, "Go ahead, do our work for us. We're matching anything."
Yeah,
they weren't in the situation that they were able to do that, and considering the ask was 1.8 for Broberg and 1.2 for Holloway, and they could have just got those guys done at $3 million, and then ended up having to stare down 7+. Was their own doing.
Tough. Yep.
Stan Bowman wasn't there. I think he understands what they're going to need to do over the course of this season, and they move on. I mean, as far as for the Jets, it does make St. Louis a bit of a more interesting team this year. And I think Broberg going to St. Louis, in all likelihood, he's going to be put there on the left side playing with Colton Parayko. It's a nice ad. It's an expensive ad for St. Louis, but this is a team that had the cap space, certainly needed the talent.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to make St. Louis a more significant challenger when we get to the regular season.
100%, and it's worth the risk, right? You're literally getting a 6'3", I believe, defenseman, 200 pounds, left side D that you wanted to play with Colton Parayko, right? Like you want that guy that could be up there, and you're right. $4.5 million cap hit is high, I guess, for a guy who's not proven. But I think you also saw him prove himself under the most immense pressure that you can have. I think he averaged like almost 16 minutes a night in the Stanley Cup final. So, I mean, not obviously top pairing minutes, but still significant minutes. And that's a lot of trust. And you got to have that. I mean, you just need to have that in the Stanley Cup final. So I like the risk by St. Louis because at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, well, you're not going to pay him that much come the next. I mean, his qualifying arc probably just doesn't get qualified, right? But if it does work out, it looks brilliant. And if he does end up playing 20, 25, 22, 23 minutes a night at 4.5 and puts up some points, you're like, okay, this is a steal, right? So I think it was and Holloway too, right? I mean, Holloway is a lot cheaper. I think there's still upside for both those guys. I really like what St. Louis did. It helped make their team better. They took advantage of it's not a loophole. They took advantage of an opportunity that they saw in front of them. I bet there's some other teams kind of kicking themselves right now too, right? Because there's other teams out there that would have had some cap space that could have maybe done the same thing. Maybe they had tried it. It sounded like was it Broberg's agent said that there was other teams that had reached out on those. So, it's not that other teams weren't in there. I guess other teams weren't maybe willing to kind of put up or couldn't put up that kind of money. And I love the fact that you get 2 first rounders for a second and third rounder, right? I mean, at the end of the day,
well, not just first rounders, but I mean, guys that were just in the Stanley Cup final.
100%,
they're ready to contribute right now. Yeah. It's going to be a bitter pill for, I think, a lot of Oiler fans to watch these guys develop and the opportunities that they get. Yeah. That won't matter if the Oilers can win one more game in the playoffs next year. Hey, good stuff today as always. We'll talk next week. We're about to bring in the champ here because it's fantasy football season, and we're getting ready to go for the return of the Media League. But we've got to get some NFL talk, and I'm like, well, you know what? We'll let this victory lap for Josh continue a little bit longer, and then
I can't even go after him because he's just like, he didn't talk crap, he didn't really do much. We'll see, though.
It was a professional operation. There's no doubt about it.
But I don't want that. I want him to either talk crap or do something because I want whatever. The title reign ends this year.
Yeah, you should have seen Remis in the Lock Shop chat today after finishing second in the poker tournament last night. Full Barry Horowitz operation in the chat afterwards. We'll have to get you in on that next one. We had a hell of a great time last night.
That would be a lot of fun.
Scotty, thanks for doing this.
Sounds good, man. Yeah, we'll see you next week.
Good stuff. We are going to talk a little NFL, a little fantasy, and check in on. I'm looking forward to getting Josh Frey-Sam's take on his Packers going to next season. Before that, though, a big cheers to our friends at Little Brown Jug.
We're not just for the showboats or the champions. We're here for the good ones, the ones who work hard and show up for others, not to get recognized, but because it's the right thing to do. We'd like to think that our good intentions show up in our beer. We keep working to perfect it, not because we want fame or fanfare, but because you deserve it. 1919, the good you deserve.
All right, good stuff from our friends at Little Brown Jug. Hey, it's Wednesday, gang, and you know what that means. Wingy Wednesday down at Next Door in the heart of Wolseley at 116 Sherbrooke. Our pals from Cosmos who handle the food operation at Next Door are ready to welcome you in for $15 pounds of wings. And Wednesday is when they roll out the sauce cart. 14 homemade sauces to mix and match to your heart's delight. If you're a wing lover and you haven't checked out Wingy Wednesday at Next Door, get down there tonight or a future Wednesday. Of course, 7 days a week. They've got incredible food at Next Door put together by the Cosmos Boys, who also are the purveyors of my favorite sandwich shop in Winnipeg, Hoagie Boys on South Osborne. It's kind of been hot and steamy. If you're not feeling like cooking right now, head on down and get one of those beasts from Hoagie Boys. Open every day, 11:30 to 7 o'clock. And, of course, also great eats along with the best selection of local beers at the Beer Can. And there's a boxing event coming up on Labor Day weekend at the Beer Can. In the next couple of days, we're going to bring in Harry Black from Pan Am Boxing to tell us more about it and get people fired up for that. Shout out to the gang at Royal Sports. Listen, I know we're talking NFL, and all the new NFL gear is coming in by the day. So if you want to get ready for your draft or the upcoming season, get down to Royal. But the other thing that's coming is hockey season. And while the pros might not be on the ice for a month or so for training camp, minor hockey's getting going very, very soon. You got to get ready for the upcoming season at Royal Sports, the #1 hockey superstore in Winnipeg for over 40 years, and the best place to outfit young players because, of course, they're staffed by hockey players who will get you the best fit, the best equipment moving forward. So whether you're 6 or 66, get ready for hockey season at Royal Sports. Check them out on Instagram as well at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. And tomorrow night's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to kicking off CFL week with the Saskatchewan-Toronto game. And then, of course, Friday, it's the Bombers and Ticats. If you're not at the game, the next best place to be is your local Boston Pizza. Great deal right now, celebrating their anniversary. All their medium specialty pizzas are $19.64. Grab one of those, some world-famous BP wings, ice-cold schooners, and more. And, of course, the big game on the big screen at your local Boston Pizza. And, hey, if you are staying at home, you can get the great taste of BP by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. All right, let's welcome in, as I teed it up, the champ is here, the inaugural champion of the Winnipeg Media Fantasy Football League. Joshua Frey-Sam from the Winnipeg Free Press joins us now as we are counting down to NFL kickoff and really diving into draft season. Josh, what's going on? How are you? Oh wait, we got you muted. Is that on our end?
No. 1 sec. Let me just try this.
Remo's got something for you. He'll cook it up. And yes, for those of you that recall at the end of last season, heartbreaking losses for Remis and myself to Josh, and he's here now. Now we can hear you. What's going on? How are you?
Hey, you guys got me now?
We certainly do.
Okay, good stuff, guys. Appreciate you having me on. Appreciate the return. Sorry, it's a little. I guess my mic wasn't working there. A little echoey in here. Appreciate you guys having me on. We're talking some ball here.
Oh, you're getting the echo. Okay, hold on a sec. We'll get Remo to.
Okay, let me fix
that. No, just echo from my room. Just it's an empty room.
Sure.
Yeah.
No problem. It wasn't the setting.
No.
How's the summer been? Have you? How was the championship celebration that has continued for months as we get ready to start back from scratch with another season for NFL fans?
Yeah, man. There was no parade like some of the like your Kansas City Chiefs got, but it was. I had my own little parade. It was fun in my head, and you want to know what? I've just been kind of stressing for the past few months already. Now it feels like doing about 1 billion mock drafts, getting ready for this year's fantasy season. So I'm looking forward. I know you guys are coming for the crown, and I'm definitely really excited to defend this thing. So
it was a heck of a season. Shout out to the commish, Taylor Allen, and we're going to be doing the draft right before the start of the season. So we'll pretty much have every piece of information we could have before kickoff with the Ravens and the Chiefs on September 4th, I think, or September 5th. So I cannot wait. Listen, before we get into fantasy, I want to talk to you about your Packers. And we're going to get into the Coolbet Lines a little bit later on. There's always the usual suspects in for the MVP, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. But much like when Mahomes won in 2019, I think there is the appetite for younger or new stars coming in. And, when I go over to Coolbet and pull up the MVP awards, it's the usual. Mahomes is 550. Josh Allen is 6. CJ Stroud, after his monster seasons there, Joe Burrow. 5th on the list, though, is Jordan Love. And I will tell you, I will be putting a little sprinkle on Jordan Love this year. I think the Packers grew so much last year as the youngest team in the league. Yeah. And maybe we're ahead of schedule in the playoffs, but with that comes some bigger expectations, but opportunity for a team that has managed their cap so well and has now seemingly had this quarterback saga play out as well as possible now that he's signed. I know you're a Packer guy, but you got to be excited to see what this team can do when we get going next month.
Yeah, pardon the pun, but there is a lot to love about the Green Bay Packers this season, right? And Jordan, when I was mapping out my futures bets and stuff like that, I know we were talking last year a little bit about betting, but when I was mapping out my futures bets for the Janitor's Closet and our futures bet episode here coming up this week, two people were my finalists, and that was Jordan Love, one, and the last one was Jalen Hurts. And I actually ended up going with Jalen Hurts as my MVP bet. But Jordan Love was definitely a finalist in that. And because there is, like I mentioned, a lot to love about the Green Bay Packers. You start with the continuity. Like you mentioned, a lot of young faces on that offense, but a lot of young faces that grew together last year. And honestly, I know it sounds like kind of a cliche, but you see a team that maybe made a little bit of a run in the playoffs, and then you hear them maybe talk a little bit about the fact that, well, we're not satisfied, right? We're coming back hungrier and so on and so forth, all the cliches. But this team really does, with the change, like adding Jeff Hafley on the defensive side of the ball, defensive coordinator. Now the defense feels a little bit better, a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more mature, even adding Xavier McKinney on the back end as well. But now the Packers with Jordan Love, He is obviously going to have, he has a new contract. He is paid. He's happy. They add Josh Jacobs, who is definitely not a downgrade from Aaron Jones in my mind in the backfield. And then they got all the same wide receivers with what we hope to be is a healthy Christian Watson on the outside this year as well. The one thing for concern maybe with the Packers at this point in time is not loving what I'm seeing / hearing out of training camp with regards to the offensive line. But I think those are things that are going to get fixed. It's more of a depth issue, not so much of a starter issue. But outside of that, Jordan Love, I think, is really going to pick up where he left off overall this season. It's the more thing, if you're talking about fantasy, it's last year he kind of started off a little bit lower, and it was very turbulent in the beginning before he really just shot off and won people some championships, including myself. But now this year, I think what it's more so going to be is it's going to be a little bit more of a steady, smooth sailing throughout the entire season. Maybe not as much turbulence in the beginning. It's going to be a steady incline throughout the rest of the season, what I predict. And there's a lot of mouths to feed on this offense, which is a great problem to have. But I don't hate your prediction for Jordan Love for obvious reasons, but I don't hate your prediction as far as just from a pure gambling standpoint of taking him as the MVP. There's a lot to love for the Packers this season.
Well, you know what? And I mean, looking at the NFC, the North, the division, listen, the Lions have had an earlier but similar trajectory and had an amazing season last year, got over the hump. I mean, did some things that Lions teams have just simply never done. They're plus 130, Packers plus 190, the Bears with all the excitement there in the Windy City at plus 315, and the Vikes at 11-1. And I thought the Vikes were undervalued a little bit. Every year we see a team or two that comes from worst to first. I think because of how strong the rest of the division was, that was somewhat unlikely. But I've kind of written them off now that J.J. McCarthy's not in. I thought there was the potential that he could come in and kind of be a real catalyst to get this team way further along. That's going to have to wait a year. But when you look at the division, do you think the Packers the team to beat? I mean, I guess the Lions are still the team to beat, but how would you handicap both Detroit and Green Bay? And what are your thoughts on Chicago with all that new talent that they brought in? And, of course, the number 1 pick overall, Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I think naturally Detroit is, like you mentioned, the team to beat. But Green Bay, I think the fact that you could get a ×3 payout for them winning the division this season, I think is a great value right there. And they are, in fact, again, on my futures bet list for this season, because I think that Detroit is in a position right now where they obviously have a ton of continuity. They're in a position right now where nothing really has changed. They're just looking to kind of build, and they were really a couple minutes away from the Super Bowl last year. And they kind of, in a way, I don't know if you want to call it a choke, where San Francisco ended up winning that game. I would actually call it Detroit kind of gave them that game, the end of that game. But Detroit is in a position now where they're just trying to bounce back, get back to that position, get hot at the right time, obviously go on the playoff run. They're going to be in the conversation. Green Bay is in a position right now, I think, where they have a little bit more of a ceiling. I feel like Detroit has almost reached that ceiling, in my opinion. They've added some great faces on the defense side of the ball, but I think Detroit is in a position where we've seen them almost at their best, whereas Green Bay, I don't think we've seen them at their best yet. So as a result, and now you're talking about Chicago in that same division. Chicago's a team for me where, yeah, I get the hype. I get it. I'm a huge fan of what Ryan Poles, the general manager over there, is doing over there in Chicago with the trades for DJ Moore. I love what they're able to do as far as getting Caleb Williams, surrounding him with Roma Dunze. They're going to grow and absolutely be a nightmare together. And then you go out and trade for Keenan Allen as well. They go out and trade last year as well for Montez Sweat on the defense side of the ball. So they got Jalen Johnson on the back end, so they have their foundations, their pillar pieces kind of in place. And now it's just a matter of obviously surrounding their talented quarterback with the pieces. Now, I think Chicago this season, my take on Chicago is I think they're going to be a tougher beat. I think they're going to be a much more competitive team. Do I see them making the playoffs? I don't know. I think they're going to be playing some really important games in December. I think they're going to be in it kind of until that week 16, 17, 18 mark with the potential to grab a wild card. But I don't necessarily see them making that jump to a 10-win team like some people might be expecting them to this season. I think this time next year, however, we could be talking about the Chicago Bears as potentially in the running to compete for the NFC North with Green Bay, with Detroit, and maybe with Minnesota. This division, NFC North as a whole, Huss, is about 2 years in my mind away from being crowned as the best division in football, in my opinion. just because you look at the young talent at quarterback with J.J. McCarthy, Caleb Williams, and Jordan Love. And then Jared Goff has obviously found a comfy home over there in Detroit as well. But I think that Green Bay is most certainly worthwhile, the flyer, if you want to call it that, or the investment, the potential to win the division. But outside of them in Detroit, I don't know if I love anybody else in the division.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on Chicago. I think they'll be an improved team. I think they'll be fun to watch. If they were in a different division, I think I might like their playoff chances a little better. I mean, their win total for the year is 8.5. I kind of think their ceiling is sort of 9. Like, I don't think we'll see them. And listen, every year with the expanded playoffs, there is a team usually that'll get in at 9 and 8, so maybe they could be that team. But I'm sort of with you. I think next year we might be talking about the Bears the way we're talking about the Green Bay Packers this year, depending on what's happening. On the other side, the team that shocked everyone, that was maybe the story of the year in the NFL, was the Houston Texans. CJ Stroud had a monster year. We talked about him at 9-1 right now. They've added Stephon Diggs. Are you buying or selling the Texans taking another step this year and potentially being one of the most dangerous teams to knocking off the Chiefs in the AFC?
Yeah, the Texans look nasty. They do. I am buying like CJ Stroud. And you don't know what? I said last year coming into the draft too, I said that I personally, if I was the Carolina Panthers, I would take CJ Stroud. You know, they traded up obviously for Bryce Young and they took him. Now Bryce Young, I'm a fan of Bryce Young. I think that he's going to take a step this year. CJ Stroud though was the most NFL-ready quarterback in last year's draft, and he showed why. And I think he's going to take yet another step this season and show once again why he is one of the premier young quarterbacks in the NFL. The division that he's in now this season, though, I think is really interesting, the AFC South. Now, the Titans, I'm not overly, I think the Titans are actually going to be a little bit of a tougher beat than most people expect they will this season. But Indianapolis, I'm really high on this year. And Jacksonville seems to always just be a little bit pesky, at least with Trevor Lawrence and Doug Peterson in the mix. But Houston right now, still like the Detroit Lions, is definitely the team to beat in that division because CJ Stroud is going to take another step. I'm confident in that. Tank Dell, let's not forget, was absolutely in torrent pace last year for potentially even being in the conversation for maybe Offensive Rookie of the Year awards, things of that nature. He's obviously was great for fantasy asset for a lot of people as well. And then you obviously add Stephon Diggs to the mix, who I think is going to primarily operate out of the slot this season. So you have the weapons surrounding CJ Stroud to take another step. And if you got the guy who's going to be potentially a bona fide top 5 quarterback by the end of this season, you got him obviously under center for you. I think you have to like your chances as far as making a run. The only other thing that I'm going to say, Huss, on this is that not only the division with Indianapolis being involved now, and I expect them to be a little bit more competitive, but I actually think now you got to take into mind like a team like the Cincinnati Bengals potentially, right? Like you know that Joe Burrow is back and healthy. I don't hate what I see over there in Cincinnati either. So, and Kansas City, I'm potentially even higher on your Kansas City Chiefs this year than I was last year. I love the Chiefs this year. I love what they're going to be able to do. I think they have a great chance at being in the mix to three-peat this year. So the AFC is still a dogfight. And then the Baltimore Ravens, I could go on for days about the Baltimore Ravens, how much I love what they're going to do on the offensive side of the ball. So the Houston Texans, I think, are poised to take another step, but I don't think we should forget that the AFC is still an absolute dogfight over there. And,
just before we move on from the AFC, I have to ask you about your old flame, Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. Yes. Take two on Jets, Aaron in New York. This team won 7 games last year with some of the most incompetent quarterbacking we've seen in years. I think if I had to pick right now, I think I'd like the Jets to win the division. What do you like? Again, caveat being Rodgers needs to stay healthy, but if he does, how dangerous do you think this team can be?
No, very. I have them. I am taking their over on 10.5 wins. I got their over on 10.5 wins, but I also have Miami's over on 10.5 wins as well. Miami, I think, is going. I actually have Miami winning the division narrowly over the Jets, but I think Buffalo is going to finish third in this division. I do, and that is in big part because the Jets, they're going to be in a dogfight for 2 games against the Jets this season. Aaron's going to be back, but listen, I think that the New York Jets offense this year is going to try and limit Aaron to throwing the ball maybe 25 to 30 times a game. They're not going to maybe rely on him as much as we've seen in past years with the Packers, obviously. But this offense is going to run through Breece Hall as a running back, as a receiver, and that's why I'm huge on Breece Hall this season. But that defense, Robert Saleh. I don't fully understand the discourse around Robert Saleh potentially being fired and being on the hot seat. I think that the fact you just talked about, maybe not all the teams that they beat were that impressive last year, but again, with incompetent quarterback play last year, that defense fought till the very end for Robert Saleh, and Robert Saleh was able to motivate his guys enough to 7 wins last year. So that, to me, that's a head coach right there. And go ahead.
Oh, I love the fact that you mentioned Breece Hall, because as we kind of transition into, looking ahead to the first round of fantasy drafts, like, if you have the number 1 pick in a draft, are you picking McCaffrey?
I think I'm actually picking Breece Hall.
Okay, I was just about to say, I've seen somebody take Bijan Robinson in that spot. Yeah. I'd personally have a hard time not taking McCaffrey just because of how guaranteed he is. But I am with you. I actually already have a future for Breece Hall to be the rushing leader at 8-1. And you said it. I don't think they're going to try to make Aaron Rodgers have to throw 40 times a game. No. And Hall was so productive against 8-man boxes every single time he touched the ball.
Exactly.
How dangerous. We talked about how much more room Nick Dembski had on the weekend with Kenny Lawler coming back.
Yep.
With opposing defenses having to worry about a field general like Aaron Rodgers, it's only going to open up more for Breece Hall. And I think he could be really the breakout player of the year. And it wouldn't surprise me if we get to the end of the season tallying up the fantasy points and saying, wow, Breece Hall's RB1.
Yeah, and here's the thing is, like, I don't hate you if you take CMC as the 101, right? And in a fantasy draft, I don't. I think that he's probably in a lot of people's minds, probably the safest pick that you could maybe make. But Breece Hall, make no mistake, is going to get a CMC type of workload this season. He is going to get, and I think as you kind of alluded to there, it's going to be more quality looks that he gets this season as well. It's not going to be, as you mentioned, the box was loaded last year. Now, a lot of defenses want to play the 2 high shell, meaning that 2 safeties are up top that are going to prevent the deep ball and explosive plays from happening. Well, Breece Hall, like you mentioned, was seen. There was no threat of explosive play. There was no threat of anything through the air last season. It was only Breece Hall. So now, obviously, Breece Hall is going to get a little bit better looks, better rushing lanes to take advantage of, and he's going to get way more red zone looks. So Breece Hall, for my money, is the best player in fantasy football this year to have. And I also don't think that we should forget Garrett Wilson on that offensive side of the ball as well. He's a bona fide superstar in my mind. Aaron Rodgers loves when he gets a number 1 receiver like that. He's going to force feed him. Garrett Wilson's another great asset to have this year. And then they have Mike Williams, who's still working his way back from injury, but obviously, when healthy, one of the best 50-50 contested ball catchers in the NFL. And then that defense, like I mentioned already, is just, they're going to be great again. I mean, the New York Jets defense is going to fight tooth and nail every single game for Robert Saleh. So Jets to over 10.5 wins, the Jets to make the playoffs, to be a top 3 seed, to maybe even win the division potentially. I think those are all great bets to make. I'm really high on the Jets this season. Now, do they make it to the Super Bowl? Do they make it to the AFC Championship? Not sure. But I definitely think that they're going to be a force to be reckoned with all season.
Josh Frey-Sam from the Freep is with us. He is the defending champ of our Winnipeg Media League. We can't wait to take another run at him coming up in a couple months. Last one for you. We mentioned CMC, Breece Hall, Bijan Robinson. Those are your top running backs. It kind of seems like there's a tier of receivers. Yeah. CeeDee Lamb, whose situation's a little complicated right now with this contract. Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase. I include Amon-Ra St. Brown in that category. And I think Justin Jefferson, on talent alone, is definitely there. I do have questions whether Sam Darnold is going to be able to get the most out of him. But who is your, like, when you go through your list, all receivers are open, you're picking a receiver. Who's first off the board for you?
Oh, hey, if contracts are taken care of, it's probably CeeDee Lamb.
Over Tyreek Hill, eh?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think CeeDee Lamb, I think the looks he's going to get with, here's the thing. I'm expecting a big year out of Jalen Waddle as well this year. I think he's going to have a bounce back year. He obviously was nursing something last year injury-wise. He's going to be back, and he's going to get his fair share of targets. Tyreek's still going to get his, don't get me wrong. But CeeDee Lamb, you look at his situations, like it's CeeDee and then like a very distant like Jake Ferguson. You know what I mean? In that offense. So it's like CeeDee Lamb is the guy. He is the option. But I'm also loving Jamar Chase this season. Absolutely loving him. And the one guy that I will say, I said Jalen Hurts for MVP this year. I think A.J. Brown is going to finish, I think, as the number 2 overall wide receiver this year. So he is the guy for me that I absolutely love to target, especially if you can find a way to get a stack on your team with A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts. I think with Kellen Moore at the helm of that offense this year, that Eagles offense is going to be dynamite. And that's why I want Devontae Smith, I want A.J. Brown, I want Jalen Hurts, I want Saquon Barkley, I want all of it. So that's the receiver, but CeeDee Lamb is definitely the number 1 receiver.
And A.J. Brown's, if you're in a 12-team league and you're picking at 9 or 10, there's a good chance you can get him. And then, another top player early in the second round. Josh, this is awesome. We got to do this more as we get ready for the season and throughout the year. Fill people in on what you got cooking in the Freep, and of course the pod as well for people that want to check it out.
Yeah, we'll start with the pod real quick. My shameless plug here, the janitor's closet, as I touched on last time I came on here, we're about to fire up on Friday morning. We're dropping our Futures Bet episode, and last season we hit it almost a 60% clip, plus 30 units in the green. We were absolutely cooking again last season. So if you guys, at TJC Bets on X, if you guys want a couple of extra bets, some thought-provoking insight for NFL bets, then definitely give us a follow over there. And then as far as the Free Plus, a little bit of a bittersweet thing over at the Freebirds. Obviously, Taylor Allen, one of our trusted reporters over there for the Bombers, is going to be traveling Southeast Asia with his girlfriend for like almost a year. And so that is obviously tough to say goodbye to him, but for a little bit. But that means that there's a spot open up on the Bombers beat, so you can expect to see a lot more of my name tied to on the bylines of Bomber stories coming up in the Freep. So looking forward to it.
Well, listen, this is awesome. I mean, I was already looking forward to talking some NFL with you. We've got you on the Bombers too. We'll expect to get hit up by me and Reem and have you back on real soon. Congrats again. Enjoy your final few days as champion, because it's all back to 0-0 in a couple of weeks. Take it easy, Josh.
Take care, guys. Talk to you.
Appreciate it. There's Joshua Frey-Sam, and again, the janitor's closet at TJC Bets. Just popped a follow in there, and you can check out some great content he's got up on YouTube as well. So give him a sub over on YouTube. We'll throw that one in the chat, Remo, and give our pal Josh a sub. And that was a great segment. We'll do that again soon with Joshua as well. All right, tough one for the Fish last night. Man, they've been on the wrong end of some close games a little too often as of late, losing 9-8 last night in Fargo, which makes things a little tighter right now in the standings in the American Association. Sioux Falls and the Goldeyes are tied atop the division, and Fargo is a half game back. It is a 3-horse race coming right down the stretch. The Fish continue this road trip, then come back home for the final homestand next week. Make sure to get your tickets at goldeyes.com. And you can give them a call at 982-BASE. A shout out to our friends at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge as they wind down another incredible fishing season. Check out aikenslake.com for more information on the Aikens experience. I already can't wait to get back there next year. And of course, all their socials at Aikens Lake. Booking well into 2025 right now, although you might be able to squeeze in a little September trip before it's all closed up for the year. Again, aikenslake.com for more information on our favorite spot, Aikens Lake. Assiniboia Downs is back again tonight. We've got some Wednesday racing, and I guess we're going to get to that as well. Remo, just before we do that, I will shout out Breezy Bend and give a big good luck from everyone at the Bend to 4-time Manitoba amateur champion Braxton Kuntz coming up in the Manitoba Open beginning tomorrow. I know there'll be a lot of Breezy members following Braxton. Incredible junior program producing guys like Brax. Find out more at breezybend.ca about making Breezy your long-term home for you and your family at one of Winnipeg's top private courses. How did you make out yesterday with the horse picks?
wasn't great, but wasn't terrible. I made 4 bets. I won 1 exacta. I think my $6 exacta box won $16.65. So I was down about $3. What is that? $3.35 there. You had a big winner.
I dominated race number 5, Remis.
Okay.
I had $3 on number 6 to win.
Yeah.
That paid $16.95.
Okay, that's pretty good.
And then I also had the $1 triactor box.
Yeah.
638.
Yeah.
Paid $69.95.
Whoa.
So I was up like 66 or 67 bucks last night.
Wow. Okay.
I'm back.
You're back. You're back.
Let's quickly fire it off for tonight. Why don't you go first? I've been sort of although I did them quite quickly yesterday and it seemed to work out. Maybe that's the strategy going forward.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going for the tries. I'm kind of just taking it nice and easy here. And you've had a couple big winners, and I think that my strategy, I'm not gonna hit that big prize. I'm not gonna lose a lot. So we'll have to see how it goes here as I pull up the races. Sorry for the delay. Okay, I'm starting with race 1. I just have $2 on horse 4, Giacometti. And then I got a couple other bets after.
Nicely done. I'm not going until race 3.
I have race 3 next. I got 1, 3, 6, 7. Race 3, a 1-6 exacta box, Gopher, and Silver Creek Kid.
I'm on just Gopher to win. I like that name. 5-2 in the opening box. Although those tracks, or those horses, I should say, have not raced, so a lot of new tracks. Anyways, we're going to go with Gopher, and I'm actually going 1-1. Maybe there's some sort of daily double I can bet. I'm on Charmingly Wit in race number 4.
I'm not in this one, but I do see a number of familiar names: Danzig, Starstorm, Woke, Joke, and Daisy's a doozy. So I'm not in on 4. I'm not till 6. So do you have 5?
Charmingly Wit. Let's take a quick look at 5. I kind of like Lab Rat here at 5-2, but you know what? I think I'm going to save it. I mean, again, I still have some major work to do to make up on you, so I think I'm going to go with a couple triactor boxes on race 6 and 7. What do you got for 6?
Race 6. 1-3 exacta box, Moonman Rules, and Golden Diversion.
Wow. It's amazing. Now with Baxter, the other favorite, being scratched, like, I don't even know if a 1-3 exacta box will even pay very much. You almost have to get in it. It seems like all the other ones are such long shots. Well, I'm going to move over to race 7 here. My favorite, A-Ladies, is in. Philly Fatale there as well. Oh, and Anna Kozana. You know what? That's what I'm going to do. 3-5-7 triactor box for the final race. 3-5-7.
I'm similar. I'm 5-6-7 on this one for the triactor box.
Oh, I'm bouncing.
I think you're going with the AI smart picks. I'm rocking the program selection.
The program selections. And then I'll have one more bet that I'll do after the fact. But yes, ASD, 7:30 tonight. Wednesday racing is back. And we've got some bonus races at the end of the year. We've been talking some betting lines today. And just before we get to Coolbet, this is what we have to think about when we're thinking about this Bomber line this weekend. Bombers are now 9.5-point favorites. Why not question of the day for not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray? Do the Bombers cover and win by double digits on Friday? I won't even ask you whether they're going to win. I think we're all quite confident the Bombers continue this rolling against Hamilton. But does Hamilton play a much tougher defense with Chris Jones in there? Can he make a difference? or does the Bomber offense get rolling? I'm leaning towards the Bombers running away with this one, but let us know in the chat. You like the Bombers by double digits? Because at that point, we can bet the over. And here are the Coolbet lines. Once again, shout out to everybody that joined us for the poker tourney last night. So much fun. Great to see so many familiar faces in there. Congratulations to everyone that played and everyone that cashed. Of course, Remis, who finished second. Matawanek, who finished fifth. The Argos are 2.5-point favorites tomorrow against Saskatchewan. Chad Kelly's back. I still think the Riders are the... I'll be on the Riders' points and in all likelihood on the Riders' money line. I mentioned the Bomber game. It was 10 yesterday. It's at 9.5 right now. I'm not sure it's going to get any lower than this, so if you do like them by double digits, now's the time to get on them. BC's a 1-point favorite in Ottawa on -125 on the money line. The Red Blacks, even money to win at home. And the Alouettes, 6-point favorites over the Edmonton Elks. We've got a lot of golf to get to. Pat, Jake, and I did our picks earlier today. I'm on Vic Hovland at 18-1, Tony Finau at 30, and Billy Ho at 40 for the BMW Championship. And we don't talk about these picks beforehand, but we were in lockstep. I had the same ones as Pat. Dusty was there as well. So we got Vic Hovland top 10, Tony Finau, and Billy Horschel both top 20. Book that at 9-1. That is in the Coolbet exclusives. I've also got another nice one, Taylor Pendrith to advance to the Tour Championship at -110, top Canadian, and others. It is all there at Coolbet. And again, for everyone that played the poker last night, if you do like sports betting, make sure to follow along, take advantage of some of our exclusives. And check out the Lock Shop every day before Winnipeg Sports Talk over at Edmonton Sports Talk. It's going to be a good one tonight, Remo, but tell you what, before we move on too much, I've kind of held off talking about the massive CFL stories, and there are a bunch of them because we got CFL 110 coming up in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, the Jeff is foaming at the mouth for these CFL hot takes here. I can't remember a week of so many topics. Quarterbacking around the league, Austin Mack coming back as well. And it's not a week of CFL 110 without talking about the Command Center. How could we leave that out? And that is the thumbnail for this week, a controversial image. Although I didn't think it was that controversial, but a lot of people very mad online, and you and Jeff are going to get into it.
We certainly will. So, folks, stick around. Don't go anywhere. If you are listening to the podcast, make sure to check out CFL 110 whenever you get a chance. But Hammer's going to be coming in hot. The latest on the Bombers, the wide open West, the return of Chad Kelly, Chris Jones emerging in Hamilton, coming to Winnipeg this weekend, and so much more. CFL 110 presented by Garage Living Winnipeg is next. So hang with us. Thanks to everyone that joined us for the regular WST episode. Make sure to join us tomorrow. Mike McIntyre is going to join us from the Manitoba Open. Talk a little hockey and a little golf with Mike and much, much more as we get ready for Bombers Ticats on Friday. Thanks to Joshua, Frey-Sam, Darrin Bauming, Scott Billeck, and all of you for making us a part of your day. And if you're with us live on YouTube, hang tight because CFL 110 is next right here on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at Winnipeg Sports